presenting about the comparative analysis of data sharing governance in educational sector. So I will give a brief introduction of data, the importance of data in education sector. Why data is so important for education sector is that it is one of the most valuable assets for no matter what organization out there, especially for education sector itself, because it able to enhance the learning and flexibility. Moreover, improve the efficiency of the management in education sector. So in education sector itself have to rely on internet and also able to generate valuable data so that to make a more better decision making overall. So however, education sector itself generate a lot more data than previously 10 years ago. It possesses cyber security threats such as data breaches and ransomware. So to avoid or to mitigate these cyber security incidents, uh, we have to make a robust implementation of data sharing governance. Moreover, we have to adhere law and regulation based on national and international data governance related law. And inside the organization itself, we have to implement a robust policy and a structured framework so that this type of cybersecurity events can be avoided. So let's take an example. What are the consequences that happen if, I mean, example of incidents that happened previously. So back in July 2022, Los Angeles Unified School District has been affected of a ransomware attack. So based of this incident, it happened during the weekend, and because this uh, this is a school, in during the weekend there's no staff able to come in and always monitor it. So this serves as a reminder that if we didn't have proper data management or protection measurements, it can give, or the education organization itself will have negative consequences. So before I go further, I would like to show what are the universities that I choose. Here I have Harvard and Stanford. So a brief of overview of or info of these two universities. So Harvard is placed at the fourth world university ranking and is in Massachusetts, USA, whereas Stanford is the second in the world ranking and is in California. And comparing the number of students, we notice that Harvard has more undergraduate students, including graduate students itself. But for the law, they have to obey based on their states, because Massachusetts data privacy law only apply on organization that based in Massachusetts, whereas in California Consumer Privacy Act, it only apply for those organizations in California. So I will be sharing about what Harvard are doing in as their practice of data governance. So first off, we have their data privacy policy. So first, that they have different application that collect user information. For instance, their email address, their ID. So these are the data that they collect with the purpose for system administration, and also for them to able to detect any abusive usage, and also for trend analysis. Moreover, they have a third-party collaboration, for instance, Chartbeat and Google Analytics, to process the data and improve overall the organization's service and management. But they do still implement a strong policy that this third-party organization should only use the data as for its purpose to process and to give a result, not for other purpose. Next, Harvard they have strong implementation of encryption and access control. And even though they have strong encryption and access control, they still acknowledge that during the transmission of data, they can't fully guarantee that it is fully secure. But however, they still have solutions to avoid any digital issue mishaps. So next, how under Harvard itself, they have many applications. For instance, we have Canva, Gmail, Harvard Key, and total of more than 10 applications under Harvard where students, faculty members, and staff users, and this application collects the data from the user. And the most of the application that collects the data is mostly in will be login info and the password. Next, we'll be looking through how Harvard classify data privacy level. So, excuse, in based off 5 levels. The first level is public, where everyone has access to the information. Second level is unpublished, non-sensitive research data. You still have access to it, but it's limited. Third level is regulated data that may harm a subject financial standing or reputation. This data is not access to public, is only kept within Harvard itself. Level 4 would be the data that possesses high risk of criminal and civil liability. And the final level, level 5, the data have to require special security measures. So this is how Harvard categorize the level of data privacy. So under Harvard, they also utilizes certain technologies for their security purpose. For instance, 1Password is to manage password info for their user. For instance, like students, they tend to forget their passwords. So 1Password is provided for the students to save their passwords. And second, web application 5.0. Third, they uses Kiteworks for the secure file transfer. And finally, we have CrowdStrike as their malware protection antivirus. So the next part would be how Harvard manage their data policy access. So it is based on 6 principles. The principles are legitimate purpose. So what does it give the meaning that whenever a data that's given an access with a legitimate purpose. For instance, a user must have that particular data with a purpose. Second is authorization. That user must have is authorized by another individual or another organization within Harvard itself in order to access the data. Third, notification. In order to keep track of the user's access of data, it has to be notified so that we're able to keep track of it. That which relates to record keeping as well. And scope limitation, for instance, let's say a faculty member of a business in Harvard only able to access material that only relates within that scope. The faculty member cannot access from other schools, for instance, physics or any engineering sites in Harvard University. And oversight would be another member within Harvard University able to look or keep track of the below member of the data access that has been assigned to. Now we are looking through at how the authorization process is handled in Harvard University. For instance, for faculty members, the data access is authorized by the relevant school dean. For employees, is authorized by the HR department or the senior administrators. For students, it is authorized at the school level dean or designee. And the last one is emergency scenario or any incidents that happen in Harvard that requires the data. It must be authorized by the chief police or the general counsel. And now this is the part of data sharing governance for Stanford University. For Stanford University, they implement minimum security standards, which is the baseline of security measure. And by this, it able the Stanford University, the IT department itself able to determine different system or different endpoints based on their risk level, and then it's been classified. For example, over here it's based off the server standards, how they're able to classify the risk. So for instance, let's say for backups, they have to know how what are the high risk, low risk, and moderate risk. And the for instance here, they have a recommended planning. For instance, for let's say any backup that has been required to do, crash plan would be their procedure for it to proceed with the backing up data. And now this is there are 12 different privacy standards for the data privacy. So first off is minimum necessary. Second, de-identification. Third, responsible use. Fourth, need to know. Fifth, transparency. Sixth, choice and control. Seven is data stewardship. Eight is security controls, more like access control. Nine would be third party. And 10 would be geo-specific requirements. 11, retention, deletion, and sanitization. And 12 is incidents. So under Stanford University, they also have a policy of data use agreement where they restrict any individual or any particular organization within Stanford, how the usage of data or how they remove the data. So over here we can look at this chart where how it's being where data user agreements required, or it may needed, or it may not be needed. So let's say, for instance, if the data is related to student data, it may be needed to have the data user agreement, so that it is certain data of the student will be exposed out. So this is what we call a decision tree of data user agreement in Stanford University. So the main purpose for this is that it ensures the appropriate authorization and it safeguard for the data usage. And now we are proceeding with the data sharing principles. It's based off FAIR principle, which is an acronym. So FAIR, the first alphabet is F, which is meaning findable. So the data on Stanford, it should be reused. It should be able to easy to find based off the data given and the metadata itself. And it's not only limited to human itself, it's also to computers and for it to process. Second, accessible. Our user should know where the data can be accessed. For instance, let's say a student in Stanford have to access a particular repository in the library. It should be easy to find it both in the computer system and in the physical. Third will be interoperability, which means that the data itself have to work with multiple applications or storage processing. For instance, let's say a department of let's say engineering in Stanford have to send a research project data that has to be processed to the physics department. So in between the transmission or the system architecture itself, for the data to transmit, it has to be efficient and able to work and reach to the correct place. Reusable means that the data must be able to reuse, and it can be replicated or combined with different settings. Fifth is about how uh, Stanford University classify data privacy. Over here is based off risk. There are low risk, moderate risk, and high risk. So by categorizing risk on the data, we Stanford itself have able to control the access and implement different security measure so that for the user able to use it in the most appropriate manner. In Stanford, the risk-based classification is very different based off server, application, and services, third-party services. So a brief overview of the comparison between Harvard University and Stanford University. First off, I'll be talking about similarities. Uh, you, both university, it is compliant with FERDA and HIPAA law, and it's also implement encryption and access control. And it also you have third-party vendors in order for both universities to perform data analytics and IT services. And finally, they have a robust, authorized, and access process for sensitive data. Now, the differences between two universities. First off, how they classify the data. Harvard classified by 5 levels, whereas Stanford classified by risk. For the policies, Harvard have 10 different types of policies with 6 key principles. Implement the data user agreement with minimum security standards. And for risk management, Harvard is they detail it out how incident response procedure is being implemented. However, for Harvard, it's more broader with a policy, but without any specific procedures. So now I want to give a success story of Harvard University based off how they govern their data. So this is a news where a student is dismissed because of misusing and or having unauthorized access for he or she um, uses a faculty member's account and manipulate his marks. So it is a violation in terms of privacy and confidentiality. And uh, Harvard University did a great job in able to detect and um, manage it well, because access should be only be granted for legitimate reasons with authorization from officials. Whereas in this case, a student having the access to manipulate his marks is not right. So it is a violation. However, for the case of Stanford University, in September last year, it happened a ransomware attack by Akira, a ransomware group. Um, it in the dark web, it has been leaked of 430 gigabyte of internal data. And Avast, an antivirus company, has released a decryptor for the ransomware. So this is the challenges for Stanford University, that they couldn't able to properly secure the data internally and lead to this kind of mishaps. For instance, ransomware. And when we speak about ransomware, it doesn't only affect the user data, it also affects the university reputation. And also when it comes to ransomware, it relates to dealing with money. So you have to pay a sum of money to the hacker, and that's where you gain you have financial loss. And these are the recommendations of my report um, for Harvard University and Stanford University. So my recommendation is that they have to implement an advanced security measure, for instance, encryption, data erasure, and data masking and data resilience. So for encryption, implement the most secure, like for instance, RSA, AES, and also having the proper procedure in terms of how to erase the data. For instance, having a cryptographic erasure, or even rewrite random zeros and ones on the storage device. Third would be data masking. Data masking is a technique of creating a version of the data that it's the data that is the same, but it doesn't involve um, um, any sensitive information. Basically, it masks all the sensitive information. Second method or recommendation for enhancing data sharing practices is to establish robust data governance framework by having a dedicated data governance team. So what should the team do is that they should conduct regular data audits to address and vulnerabilities in the data management or data system, so that at the end it is secure. Third is to adopt a zero trust framework. The zero trust framework I will explain in the next slide, because it is a highlight for the for these two universities. Regular policy reviews and updates should be done. And how can it be done is by having an in-house threat intelligence platform, so that the IT department in both university able to stay informed of the latest security threat and trends. Fifth would be enhance the collaboration with third-party vendors. Um, Basically, both universities should be review back the policy on how they supply the data to the third-party vendors. It should be improved and establish clear data use of agreements. Six, within the university itself, they have to promote security awareness and training. Having conducting training sessions for staff, for instance, phishing campaign, so that they're able to aware what are the emails that um, looks is a spam email, but it's malicious, so that the staff are aware and students have to know how to protect the data themselves. So now we'll be talking about zero trust framework. So zero trust framework is based of 5 principles. The system should have the least privileged access for the user. It should always continue the verification process, and always have context awareness access control, for instance, based on IP address, based on MAC address. Fourth, improve the data encryption technique or algorithm. And fifth, data minimization. So to implement zero trust, having multi-factor authentication. Uh, we also can employ just in time and just enough access. Third, grant access user based on device information. And finally, having a dedicated devices such as privileged access workstation and secure admin workstation for the internal management system, for having a complete zero trust framework. So my conclusion for this comparative analysis is that it's important to have a robust data governance in any organization. Moreover, educational institution, it is a must that uh, the organization to adhere regulatory framework with continuous improvement, so that it able to avoid any future cyber security threats, and moreover avoid any vulnerability in the system itself. Third is to establish a proper or a clear defined agreement with robust policy within the third party vendors itself. Fourth, institutions should have 100% commitment to continuous enhance and being stay informed with emerging threats, and moreover being proactive to avoid any cyber threats in the future. So that's it from my comparative analysis between Harvard and Stanford. And thank you, Doctor.